Everything is just so small here. We actually need to build a different cage for Fatsack, I think. Like build him a smaller little cage over here, kind of like this. Let's give him less room. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Amnesty. Free Fatsack. No, Fatsack is not going anywhere. He stays in that cage. That's his life. And what I want to do is I'll have him kind of pop out other little Fatsacks, I think, every so often. And can we, like with the test levels, is there like level logic that we can actually edit? Like, oh cool, we can actually save a little thumbnail as well. Let's do that. I guess I have like a level controller or something, you just shove it in there. Not a problem. The Sea Shepherd is gonna free the Fatsacks. Well, if they show up at my house, I'm gonna get the shotgun. And I'm gonna ask them how in the hell they got a boat that big in front of my house. People with that much power are dangerous. So kind of what I think I want to do is, I think I want some spawning parameters that you actually attach to this thing. And then that determines what gets created. So I want like a simple blueprint spawning thing. Like we got effect classes and we got objects and all that stuff. That's no big deal. Create generic actor. Where is this big called? Yeah, well. So the player proxy and all that, Dashkin entity utils, generic actor. Alright, so this is like, this is called, okay, cool. So basically this will just clone an actor that you pass in. So we actually, yeah, okay, so we want to create entity actor, the scale. So this is taking entity proxies and all that sort of stuff. So what we want is so it's like from entity, from proxy. with scale and all that stuff. Any actor from proxy, and from proxy with scale. So this should be create entity actor from proxy. No, why? And I think the entity proxy actor probably also needs to be create entity actor, yeah. This is from proxy. With scale. Alright, let's make sure this works. And then basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to, I believe, make a player proxy creation parameters, and on it we're going to be able to set things. And then we pass that into our creation function. So in Blueprint, you'll be like create actor, and then you can like attach a whole bunch of stuff with like overrides and everything else. So you need to find the best way to actually do that. If it's to create like some sort of structure that we can create kind of on the fly. We have like maybe a create default thing that returns an object that we can use. Or if we can make one locally in a blueprint. So I'd like to be able to make one locally in a blueprint nicely. Alright, so we got that. Because it's basically inside of, this is generated code. Yeah. We kind of want something that looks like this, which is like F entity creation params. And we want a whole bunch of stuff like float, override height, like we would like to customize the AI, I think. So that would be like a logic object. We'd want like some movement data, I think. We'd want like a default AI group. And then a default AI state, perhaps. We might want yeah, maybe an override name. Maybe a T-array of f-string, custom tags, and then kind of a custom properties. Does our logic object have custom properties? I think it's our entity. Is it our entity proxy that has that? It's just our Dashkin entity data. Yeah, it's just right on here. Let's see if there's a pair structure, blueprint, Unreal. Looks like there's T pair, so we could have an array here. It's like T array of T pair of f string. And this would be custom properties. And we probably want like f vector, we want position. Was there anything that we want otherwise with this? We could probably have the position passed in separately. So it'd be like override position, but no, we don't really want that. We want like things that are non-standard inside of here. A movement object, perhaps? Well, let's build it and take stock of exactly what we can throw around here. So you just gotta finish compiling this thing. And I need to take a look at what else we can customize, because I basically want you to be able to make a completely custom actor. I mean a character in Blueprints if we absolutely need to. I mean, the character should already exist. but maybe we want to change how it moves or which AI. So if like you made a fat sack and you're like, don't start off in the normal AI state, start off in the fleeing AI state. Like say we had some giant disaster happen and we want like a whole bunch of fat sacks to appear behind a bush and then run away all panicked and, while the bush is on fire or something, you know. We'd want to like spawn, we wouldn't want to have to make like the scared fat sack creature. We'd probably just want to make fat sack, make him be able to be scared, and then we want to make fat sack and then say like, you're now scared. And it'd be easier just to be like, start off as scared versus like get the array of fat sacks and for every fat sack make them scared. It's just different ways to do the same thing. I mean, the game is not about torturing fat sacks, but we're going to make it very easy to do so. You know, so take that as you will. Toggle state before spawning them? Yeah, pretty much. So let's see, exactly what can I do if I've got this like spawn entity. Well, alright, one thing first. We want to see what we actually have on our proxies for our objects. We've got the entity data, pixels tall, meters tall, logic controller, movement data, and movement controller. The movement controller is well, just nothing. We don't need to specify it. So we might actually want a movement object on there as well. So let's now make an entity utils function, which we can actually call here. I don't like how Visual Studio sorts these things. Like, be like if you're working out of a file, it can like hide it. And it's like, well, I just don't hide the file. So we want like a create entity actor from params. Alright, so we probably want to have like the position and all that stuff in there. So we want like this structure, and it should have like f vector position, f vector scale, and all that sort of stuff. We should do like override scale. Yeah. So we'll have like this f entity creation parameters reference, call it params. And we want to, I think, get like the subclass of the entity. So we want to make it by subclass of Dashkin entity. We also want to be able to make it from an entity proxy. I want to be able to make it by name. Some of these are just frickin' annoying. Because you can't just pass in a Dashkin entity here, and now it has to be a subclass of one. I don't think we're blueprinting these, so it's just something like this. And the other one would be create entity by name with params. Instead of taking this stuff, we do a const f-string reference. This would be name. Why don't we just drop this entity actor stuff real quick from some of these, because it's just extra characters we don't need. Let's just go ahead and implement these functions. And we'll clean these up once we get the interface that looks correct to me. So we're going to just have these like return null and do absolutely nothing with the data that we're passing in. And what I want to do is I want to make it so it's easy to use these methods first, and then we'll get it actually working. Cool. So we'll figure it out. I'm not sure if a use struct is actually going to be super great here, and like what pattern we can use to really easily fill out the data for it. Because I want it to be just like you can create an entity here, and if you just pass in a name, it'll just like create it, you know, at least a position you have to set or something like that. But it'll like grab, you know, like the default character and make it just like that. But I want you to be able to override stuff, and I don't want you to have to do a whole bunch of work to override stuff. Just to be like, okay, we'll set this thing, you know, set the height to 200 meters or 2 meters or something, and it just kind of works. And if you wanted to override everything, I also don't want it to be a giant pain in the ass. I want it to be like, okay, well, here's how you override all the little bits and pieces. So if we went in here, and let's add a comment block. Let's call it create character. The other thing is I could kind of split all this stuff into macros that are easier to use as well, so I can also do that sort of thing. Let's see. So we want to call create entity by name with params is something that probably we want to do. So we'll call like get world. Why aren't we, are we grabbing the world on the other ones? Yeah. Okay, so the worlds, we shouldn't be including the world, we should just be doing our own stuff here. Alright, so we can at least remove that. So we don't need world passed in here, we'll just figure it out. We don't need, if you have no concept of which world you're on, you can still create an entity, and that's how we want it to be. We want it to be simple, we want it to be easy. We want you to not have to know anything other than the name Fat Sack. Be not known, be Fat Sack. Yeah. First, clear your mind. Well, that was a lot easier than we expected. Yeah, take the middle path. Be Fat Sack. Alright, the thing we're looking at is this logic. So let's pull it up real quick. See character creation. So let's take a look here. I want to do create entity by name with params. Okay, cool. So that's looking better. So the entity name should be what we've got here. Loaded asset fatsack proxy as entity. So we want to be able to create fatsack proxy and params. So let's see if we could make a variable here. Can we make a local? So we could make one which is like fatsack creation params, and we can change its type to an object type, which is like, what do we call it? Entity creation params. It's not a blueprint type. Okay, so let's just delete this real quick. So I think the reason I can't use this is because I need to declare this uStruct as something that we can blueprint. Let me just look it up real quick. So it's like use uStruct in blueprint, and it's blueprint type. I think just like that, and then we'll be able to make it. So let's make sure that that works. So let us see. We've got our world. We're gonna create entities inside of that world and do other things to that world. And the reason we'd want to like maybe have these custom tags or properties would be maybe you want to spawn a fat sack and have like another fat sack follow it around or something like that, right? So it'd be like find this other person in the world and follow them or whatever, you know, like stuff. We need ways to find objects that are easy to use, and sometimes just having a string name like the leader, you know, quote unquote, is all you need to make something work properly. Who knows, maybe fat sacks could grow wings and then fly in swarms, and you could have flocks of them. Maybe. Little do you know, fat sacks are the most destructive force in Brackenwood. They sprout wings, grow gigantic legs, and they turn into giant fat sack locusts. They eat the entire planet, leaving nothing but destruction. You're all worried about the Yu-Yu. No, worry about the fat sacks. They are what you should fear. Alright, so let's see if we can make this variable. So, fat sack creation params, and it should be a entity creation params. Okay, so it's an entity creation params thing. So we'll just do like a get here, and can we break it? Okay, yeah, so we can break it apart, except nothing's a frickin' U property because I'm a moron and didn't add that. So we'll save this and then do all that, and let's just set this up here. So let's just do all these things. Alright, all the U properties for all the things, all the time. That's what we're all about. Every day. They would molt. Oh no. Yes. Legend tells us of the molts of the past. That's what Lemony Wee is trying to warn Bitey about. Unrecognized type T pair. Oh, give me a break. I can't make an array of pairs. I mean, I probably can't. I don't think I can make a T map either, because we don't support useful crap inside of blueprints all the time. It's like, oh, you want like something mapped to something else? You better make 2 arrays for that. Come on, man. Wait, do they actually support T-maps now? Or is it just T-maps cannot be used as like function parameters or something? It's probably that. There's something there with T-maps, I forget, is all messed up with U properties, or not. It's with U something. It might be U functions with like return values, or something else was totally screwed up. But maybe they fixed it with 4.16. And I can use it now. Or maybe fat sacks are actually alien creatures from other planets that are just slowly gathering in number until they have enough sway to take over the rest of Brackenwood. Who knows? I certainly don't. Okay, so if we got these fat sack dudes, we want to break it out into our override parameters. So if you said like, okay, like we've got this thing, this fatsack creation parameters. Can I like set position? Can I not call set on this thing? So like if I have a vector, I want to these are all blueprint read only. It's like, how come I can't set these variables? This seems like I screwed something up. And this is kind of just me also not knowing Unreal super well, so I'm like kind of stumbling around when I'm making objects. It's like, well, because we've only been using Unreal for the past like, 6 months or whatever, 5 months, and we haven't actually been using Unreal for that long. Like, we didn't actually start using Unreal until just like about a month ago, because before that we were working within Unreal, but I was mainly hooking up other systems and making kind of a box inside of a box. We hadn't actually started making levels or anything else. It was like just making it so like we had all our toolbox in order, like that we could call HTTP functions, that we could save local files, and that our WebKit window worked, and all this other stuff. That's not the game. That's more systems and tools to build the game. Which is equally as important, just it kind of puts it so, my knowledge of Unreal in actual practice is not nearly as vast as one might expect. My knowledge of complaining, though, is quite vast. That is something that you can count on. So if we go back into our player logic here, when we split this apart, break into creation params, okay, let's get this. Can we split the structure? No, I can't actually set it, can I? Because like I could do like, yeah, throw the params in here, but let me see if it's like set variable on uStruct blueprint. I mean, we can call set fat sack creation parameters. I mean, I think all these things are blueprint read write. And these are all read write, and that's what we compiled in there. So I'm just not seeing any sort of thing here we could do here with like I'm seeing absolutely no way to actually edit the parameters on this thing except maybe there's this checkbox here that we have to set for this. This is strange. I see there's set members in entity. I mean, this is close. This is like set members should be able to okay, wait a minute. So what you do is you can set them right here and then you do it kind of like this. So that in this way it'd be like array of strings create. So we can add things, sort of, in here. I think what I might want to do is, it's close, but I don't really like it that much. What I think I want to do is basically have a bunch of functions that are on side of the creation parameters, which you can call in order to set things up, and then there's like we use kind of a builder pattern sort of thing for it. It should work pretty well. So I'm just going to delete these things real quick. How come I can't compile it? Alright, there it is. And what we're actually going to do is none of these things are going to be blueprint accessible. So instead we're going to have functions that allow us to access these things. And I'm changing all these names because I don't want them exposed to blueprints at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to make some functions here. We're going to have like a void reset. Alright, so we want, we also want booleans for all these things. So it's like bool im override position. And all these things will be false by default. So im override height, and then override AI. And all this sort of stuff. So we'll be able to call these functions like set name and set all these things, and you'll call them when you want to create this object. And if you wanted to specify absolutely everything, well, you're going to be calling a lot of functions, but you're specifying all this custom data. Like, you're going to have to override everything if you want to. Otherwise, all you do is you just call like create. We're actually going to have like a static method here, which is going to call like create params, and that'll create the initial one, so you don't have to have like a variable on your class. And this is returning a copy, so it'll be fine. All right, m override logic state group, m override logic state, override name, and custom tags and the rest there. If there's anything in them, we'll just use them. And these override states we can also not have booleans for. It's stuff that's like a fully qualified object, like a float or something. You can't tell, like usually it's like how many states are there for true and false, and really it's like true, false, and maybe. And it would be like if you sent a letter to somebody, you'd say like, okay, like I sent a letter to this person. And the question is, did they get that letter? And the answer is like, well, if you sent them the letter and you got like a message back saying thanks for the letter, then that's true. Like you can answer that question, yes, they got the letter definitively as a yes. And there's on the other hand, you can say false. And that would be as if you never sent the letter to begin with. You control all that, so you're like, oh yeah, the letter was never sent. So obviously they didn't get it. And maybe is something like, well, I put it in the mail, but I haven't heard back from them. So maybe they got the letter. And it's important. So like with a float, you're like, well, is the value 0 because I set it to 0, or because not being set is 0? So we have to do things. So we actually want to return the any creation params reference to itself for all these things, so we can kind of chain these together real nicely, I think. And I don't know if this will actually let me do it nicely. So then we just make these methods like override scale or override height, and we'll just call those. Override AI, and we're going to take a logic object, AI. We're also going to have override AI by object, and we're going to have, this will be like T subclass. And this is kind of one of the annoying things here, is subclass means it has to be a subclass. It doesn't actually include the parent class as well, which is just total trash. It's like, give me a freaking break here. So for each one of these, we have like basically this, all this crap we have to do. Alright, so now we need movement data. So we've got that, and then we want override logic state group. Then we want override state. Override name. And then we will have add custom tag. And we're tag, and then we're going to have add custom property. And we're going to have name and const f string address value. Okay, so let's go ahead and make all these functions. I was looking at this real quick. I was like, this looks almost identical to what we just made. That's true, it is, but it has a different purpose. Therefore it looks differently. I wonder if I can get away with this. Can I actually return a reference to the this pointer and not have this thing explode on me? I'm not sure. I don't know. I will find out though. What is this bitching about? Please tell me why you're complaining. It has no idea why it's complaining. That's Visual Studio for you. It's like, hey, something's wrong. What's wrong? I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. Why'd you get my attention? Cause I just wanted to. And you're like, Visual Studio. And it's like, I know. But nobody liked Clippy. And he just wants to feel needed. Okay, so let's make sure we can actually call all this crap. These are U functions, and we want to just have the categories should definitely be creation still for all these. Alright, let's see if all this stuff compiles properly. Yeah, all the drama. So let's say U structs cannot contain U functions. Well, then this thing has to be a U class, then doesn't it? For us to actually use anything. Or we could make static things that act upon this thing. What are the advantages and disadvantages of such an arrangement? We have to pass things through. So why don't we try it? U class.